High on the Mormon top.
I believe the church is in better condition than it has been at any time in its entire history. My beloved brethren and sisters,
welcome to Once Upon a Mormon,
another testament of religious abuse.
So many have been hurt.
Persecutions may rage, mobs may combine.
whom shall we go?
Sown in corruption. We need you.
Never again.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, welcome back once again to another episode of Once Upon a Mormon. My name is Brother Hyrum. Today I'm joined by Sister May. Sister May, how are we today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. You know, another day in paradise, just living in the promised land of Australia.
Yes.
Depends who you ask, really.
Yeah, it's been fucking hot this week.
It has been pretty hot. I guess we probably should start off with a spiritual thought. Sister May, since Sister Donna is off setting traps for wildlife like usual, would you like to start us with a spiritual thought?
Absolutely. I would love to share the revelations I've had this week with all of our lovely followers. So, the other day, I was having a thoughtful shower, as you do, having all my big thoughts in the shower.
Shower thoughts are the best thoughts.
Literally the best time to have big brain. Yes. Wow. Okay, so pretty much my thought process was a couple weeks ago, I had a family member reach out to me and say that some pretty nasty things to me about being a mum, and it kind of felt like she was mad at me because I didn't think and feel the exact same way that she has. And I've just been thinking about that for so long. And this week I kind of realized that like one of the most toxic thought processes that the LDS Church has, and really any toxic, abusive person can have, is the mindset that because they feel, think, or believe a certain thing or way that everybody else around them needs to feel, think, behave, do the exact same thing as them, which is, it's extremely toxic, and it doesn't allow for respect for other people and their experiences and their thoughts. And yeah, so that's kind of...
I guess you could say it's very oppressionary. You know,
yeah.
It's sort of like, all right, who has the loudest voice? And if I can speak louder and I can just get in and just make point after point after point, I will win this discussion. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you're right or not. As long as you believe that you're right, then the other person is just automatically wrong. And there's no actually listening to reason.
Yeah. And I think that's really toxic, and like, what a terrible way to live life. Like, you miss out on so many opportunities and hearing so many other people's like stories. If you live that way, you miss out on the diversity of the earth we live on.
That's a good point. Thank you for your spiritual thought.
Anytime.
I very much appreciate it. Well, before we get started with today, I guess there has been a bit of news. The Mormons have been in the news again. They're getting a lot of publicity at the moment. I mean, last episode, or was it the episode before, we spoke about Mormons and their tithe dealings.
Yeah.
That may also be the episode I haven't edited yet, so which is going to be after these next two episodes.
Yep.
So, but this week in the news, you may have heard that there has been a shooting in a US nightclub, and 5 people were killed. It was a gay club, and the person that has been charged with his offence is actually a member of the church. Now, the church has come out and said, oh, well, hasn't been active recently. Doesn't really make a difference in my eyes. But then you look at another news report where reporters spoke to the suspect's father, who is like, I'm an active Mormon and I think he's done the right thing, essentially. And that's not word for word, but he supports Jeffrey R. Holland's stance at more musket fire towards the LGBTQIA plus community. What are your thoughts on this, Sister May?
It makes me very angry. I have seen quite a few TikToks about it from people saying that they should actually hold Jeffrey responsible for his words, because that is what kind of caused this person to do these disgusting things. And to be honest, that yes and no, like Jeffrey didn't take the gun and shoot them, but he did say those horrible things that led to these horrible actions. And I really do think he does need to have some kind of responsibility for that. Like, you just can't say that, especially when you're in power, because people listen to you.
Oh, along with Dallin H. Oakes as well.
Yeah.
You know, he is notorious for being outspoken against the LGBTQIS plus community.
Yeah.
And, you know, they need to have some sort of accountability. I mean, also in the news, the church has recently changed its stance on supporting gay marriage.
That was just utter bullshit.
It was complete gaslighting. The church has come out and said, hey, look, we think that everybody should have the chance to get married. And so the church officially says, okay, we support this political piece of legislation. However, the doctrine hasn't changed, so you can't be accepted in the church if you're gay. So, sols.
Yeah,
but
literally
you can
bullshit.
you can get married in society. That's okay. You just can't be with us.
Yeah, rip.
Kind of defeats the purpose of the
It's
whole
fine. I
announcement.
didn't want to get married with them anyway.
So, well, moving on from such tragic news, we actually today have a very exciting episode. So I do apologise in advance. We have committed now to buying some equipment, which will be happening after this podcast is recorded. So that way we can have more people on. There are 3 of us today in the studio, other than Sister May and I, and we're all sharing the one microphone.
Yay, us.
We are poor, and we try our best, and people aren't paying enough tithing, so that's on you guys. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Sister Lenora. Sister Lenora, welcome along.
Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming along, and we're glad you could join us today. We're not quite sure how long this episode is going to go for. It may actually be a 2-part episode, so stay with us. There's a lot coming up. Now, Sister Lenora, you've travelled a long way to get here, a whole half an hour, 40 minutes. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me. So excited.
So Sister Lenora is actually my sister that I've been talking about.
Woot woot.
And one of our longtime and original supporters of the podcast.
Absolutely.
One of the OG. Wait, oh my God, that reminds me to that random person in Texas that binge listened to our podcast the other day.
All 18 episodes.
We freaking love you. Please message us on social media. We would love to connect with you. That was just made our entire week. That was amazing. We love you.
So specifically that person, you are in Houston, Texas. So if you don't know, with our podcast, we can actually track to a certain level where our listens are coming from. So not specifically to your house. I'm sure we could find you somehow. But we can.
We're not creepy, I swear.
Not that creepy. But we can sort of see what country, what state and what city the listens are coming from. We can also see what platform you listen from. So if you don't know, our podcast is available on several different platforms, some of which include Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, plus Spreaker as well. So, you know, if you have a preferred one, I'm sure we can make something work.
Yes, that was all
Cool.
for that one. Yep.
So
back to
we're gonna get right into it now. So Sister Lenora has come on to speak about her experiences with the Mormon Church, where she comes from, who she is in an anonymous way. And yeah, I'm having a day today where I just can't speak. It seems like a common occurrence. But I guess to start us off, Sister Lenora, could you? Oh, we're going to call you Lenora, aren't we?
Yes.
So Lenora, could you please tell us a little bit about where you come from, who you are in an anonymous way, and how you came to be part of the church?
Well, I didn't have much choice, but that's fine. I was raised in a Mormon family, going back to the days of Joseph Smith. Like, my family has been in the church since day dot, and I very much was raised going to church all the time. I grew up in a large Mormon family and in a small Mormon community in Arizona. So I was just bombarded with it, and I didn't have an escape, because even when I would visit family, they were Mormon. So, but at the time I didn't know any different, so it was just life. So yeah. And then so I met Hyrum's brother, and came back here to the promised land. Right. And yeah, just kind of stuck with, I've been back and forth between Australia and Arizona, but yeah, I love it here, so I'll stay. But I stayed in the church, even raising my kids. We had 3 kids and raised them in the church up until, actually we did end up getting divorced after 11 years. But even through that, I don't know, that kind of gets more into the falling away. But yeah, as far as raised in the church, that's what it comes down to.
That's fascinating. So your family goes all the way back to the Joseph Smith days.
Yep.
How does that impact the culture of your family? And does it give you some supreme standing within the community?
Actually, I would probably say, like the whole, it's almost like the popular girl mindset, you know what I mean? Like, oh, they're a
pioneer family.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes. Yeah, that's
the
what
OG.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We're talking to a famous person here, okay?
Celebrity status.
I am privileged.
I'm getting starstruck.
But it really did. There are certain names in the church that you do hear, and you're like, oh, it's just, as soon as you hear the name, you're like, yep, Mormon. And I think that happened with me. So yeah, it was a bit of a, high standard, privileged, I think was the whole, and just that whole kind of up on a pedestal. And yeah, like you said, like the whole, I don't even know how to, just the words to explain that, on a pedestal. Yeah. Yeah.
You kind of said, like, before you have kids, I kind of, like, how did you find church and going to church with kids, and like with the early marriage, like how, I don't know how to explain it, like how did you find that? Because I left the church and then had my kid, so like and then I went back for a little bit with her, and it was just very interesting experience. Like, how would you kind of...
I think that I was just still running on the whole brainwashed scheme. You just do what your parents did, and you do what their parents did, and that's our duty. We do what we're taught to do, and like, you will make your kids do this, and which I did. I took them to all their, we did all the stuff, all the activities, all that kind of stuff. Even kind of did the whole, encourage them to have good Mormon friends. And then, it just kind of got to the point, like, I didn't even realize until just recently, my eldest son told me, he was like, oh, yeah, Mom, you made me go to all these activities. And he was just saying how much he hated it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
That's pretty funny, actually. It's, you kind of hear it back later on. Like, I tell my parents the same thing. A little bit. I was talking to my mother today, and she went to a first aid course, and the guy that runs the first aid course, he was one of the leaders in youth growing up, and he's no longer active in the church. And I was just telling her, we used to have to go to all this, and there were certain people that were actually good in the church that made it worthwhile, but at the same time, I hated doing it all.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I went to all my activities, and I do remember, I was probably around 15 when I kind of went through my, bit of rebellious stage, and I remember hating, like I said, it was a small Mormon town, and so everybody at school, it was Mormon every day that you were in with other Mormons, and I just hated it. And even like the activities that we had, the personal progress book. I got to
We are daughters of our Heavenly Father.
I still can't get over the fact you know that better than like I can't remember half of it, and I had to recite it every week. And then you're just like, "Yep, let's go."
It's ingrained in my memory.
Yeah.
Until they add to it.
Oh, I don't know what it is now. There's a new one.
I've heard stuff
weird.
now. I'm like, oh, what? You've changed.
So when you grew up in the church, you grew up in a Mormon community. How big was this sort of community? Are you talking like a city or?
Yeah, the town that I grew up in was about 1,000 people, and I think that the school, which was all kindergarten through senior year, was I think I heard at one point that it was like 80% Mormon, which I actually thought that honestly, when I heard that, I was like, no, it's more. I thought it was more.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Damn.
And just if you think about just the pressure that, you can't do anything without somebody finding out. And then, like I said, even going away from that town to like maybe, a bigger town in Arizona, like a city in Arizona, and going there, but then still visiting LDS family. And it's like, you can't escape it.
That's fascinating. Like in comparison, like I grew up in a town, I was like one of 3 Mormons in thousands of people. Like it's just completely different.
Yeah, same. I was the only Mormon besides my brother in my school. I just couldn't imagine, like, because school was like like I could go to school and it was safe, whereas like going to school and still there is everybody Mormon. Yeah. Like, oh my God.
I'm talking about the principal, all the teachers, all the kids. Like it was a Mormon town.
Imagine going to church and seeing your teacher.
I know, right?
So did you have to do like seminary and stuff at school?
Yes, that was a bonus of growing up in a small Mormon community. It was that you didn't have to do the early morning stuff. You could work it into your subjects at school. And the seminary building was just right outside the school boundary. And so for that period, you just walked right over to the seminary room. And yeah, that was really cool because I probably would have left the church a lot earlier if I would have had to do early morning seminary.
It sucked.
Here we are every single morning before the sunrise, getting up, getting in the car, driving to seminary, and you just had it easy.
Yep. I know there are some perks of being brought up in a Mormon bubble.
So I guess that also comes with its own set of challenges and pressures as well. I mean, you married my brother at a fairly early age, and he came back from his mission and started getting in touch with you, and from there, what was the pressure like getting married in such a community? Well,
I would say, like I've heard on this podcast, is that it's that mentality of, oh, we're doing things that aren't, proper. What's the word? Like, you don't have sex before marriage. And if you do, it's wrong. And so you're left with that, what do I do? Do I keep doing this and just feel terrible about myself? Or do we just get married? And so I've definitely felt that pressure of, to make this right, I'll just get married.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So then, like, how did that affect your relationship, that pressure to, okay, now we have to get married? Like, do you feel like that may have, I don't know, played a part in your, like, pulling away from the church and those kind of beliefs?
Yeah, I think that I think that more than anything, it was almost that, being faced with that big feeling of, what do I do? This or this? And then you go with what you think. And then really it's always hindsight, you look back and you're like, you know what? I didn't look around enough. And so it just kind of comes into if I didn't have that pressure, I could have looked around more and checked out the other fish in the sea, Yeah. Like, I could have chosen wiser. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, there was definitely that pressure. Even though we were actually married for a couple of years before I had my eldest.
True.
And that's pretty long in Mormon standard, right?
Yeah,
waiting 2 years to have a kid. Like, can you believe the pressure that I had all the time? Like, when are you going to have kids? When are you going to have kids?
Like, I got home from my mission in 2018. So I'd been home for 2 years, still not married.
Oh, wow.
Still no
you must
kids.
Have been
oh God, it was a nightmare. I had like, you know, all those little old ladies at church, when are you getting married? And it's like, shut up.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just so annoying. And then, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's like they come up to you so many times that you're just like, fine then.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. Just from the community that I grew up in, just like, and we were, you know, we all were going off the same programming, you know?
Yeah. You kind of see like the looks they give you, like I got the, she's an RM and she's been home for 2 years and she's still not married. Like,
untouchable,
what's
you know?
wrong with
like,
her?
Yep.
Like, yeah. And
discard.
exactly. Like, I had a boyfriend and then he broke up with me and it was kind of like, oh, what's wrong with her? Like, why didn't he marry her? When it was the fact that he literally didn't want to have an emotional conversation about what was going wrong in our relationship. He'd rather just break up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so mad.
Oh, jeez.
So now I'm with my current partner who is completely atheist, doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And just, he's so much better. Couldn't imagine marrying him.
Yeah.
God, I could not imagine being married to a Mormon.
Yeah. Yeah. There would be stipulations if I did, like, not active.
Yeah, exactly.
and on, you know, like,
feminist, all this
and
shit.
Not against any sort of gays or, you know, like all
not
that.
patriarchal bullshit.
Yes.
Like, you're the woman, you cook and clean. Oh, I couldn't do that.
Yep.
My brother's like that, and I just want to smack him.
Yep.
Oh, it makes me so mad.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that it's affected. It's kind of good and bad. Like I was saying, it's, you know, you look at some things and it's always in hindsight that you're like, oh, I should have done this or shouldn't have done that. But a big thing is that even today, when I tell people I have a 21-year-old, they're like, what? No. And they honestly, it's not just people being polite, like they well and truly don't believe it. I'm like, I got married early, and I didn't.
Is he 21 already?
Yeah. He's almost 22.
I tell you what, time flies.
I know, right? Oh, I know, it's crazy. But and I think I know people my age now, and they have like young kids, and I think far out. I'm so glad in hindsight. At the time, I hated it, but I'm so glad now that I was kind of pressured into kids early, just because. Now I'm just like, I can see that light at the end of the tunnel, you know?
You could be like my parents and have a 19-year-old at home still, and they're like at retirement age.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So so sometimes, you know, the pressure is real. Like, it's real. And, you know, when are you going to have kids? When are you going to get married? So it's, the whole... Yeah, so the pressure is definitely real. It's definitely full on, and it's not just coming from one area. It's all areas.
Yeah, and like I remember being home from my mission, because I was home from my mission about 2 years before having my child, and like when I first came home, it was like, oh, like, do you have a boyfriend? Are you dating? And being like, no, haven't been asked on any dates yet, like, and everybody else I asked don't really want to go. Like, and it was always kind of like looks like, ooh, what's wrong with her? Like, why is she not married? Why is she not dating? And then by the end of the first year and going on to the second, it was kind of like the cheese touch. Like, Sister May has the cheese touch. Like, she's been home for ages and not married. Like, what the heck is wrong with her? And like, I had a boyfriend for a little while, and he broke up with me because he didn't want to have like a big emotional conversation about what was going on in our relationship, and he just found it easier to break up with me, which at the time I was really heartbroken. I would have married him, but now I'm like, okay, well, that was his own issue. But back then I was like, oh my God, like, there is something wrong with me. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, God promised if I went on a mission, I would be married happily, and it's not happening. What the fuck is wrong with me? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy to see the way that people are treated when they don't go with the flow of, you know, like a return missionary. You're supposed to get married, you know, otherwise you're a menace to society. But it's strange how that's kind of shunned. But then, like, I went to school with a girl that got married to a return missionary in the temple a week after graduation.
Holy cow. That sounds like Sister Donna.
Sorry, Sister Donna, we love you.
But isn't that just crazy how it's like, oh, no, you are wrong because you're taking your time, but jumping right into things when you're a child, yeah, do that.
It's literally like in my brain, it's grooming, and it is so normalized by the church, and that these older men can come in and groom these young women to be good wives for them before even these children have a moment to even look around and see who they are as a person.
One does not simply graduate to single adults.
Yeah, you're right. It is a grooming process. And, it's the whole, oh, well, are you writing letters to this missionary in the ward? And, it's like, I remember having a friend that had a really cute brother, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to write to him. And it was like that. You go into it without even realizing that you're playing into the system. You're doing what they want you to do he was cute. But it's just that whole, you want to have sex, then you will get married. Mm-hmm. Just that pressure is just so intense.
And it's interesting because even from a male perspective, I had people writing to me on my mission.
Oh, Brother Hyrum. Oh, my goodness.
Sister Donna's sister wrote to me while I was on my mission.
Stop.
Yeah, legit. And it's just, it all comes in a full circle, and that pressure is constantly there.
I had somebody who was interested in my brother. So my brother and I served at the same time. So somebody that was really interested in my brother, that they're kind of a bit narcissistic, and they ended up writing to me about how they hadn't gone on any dates because they, with anyone, because they want to be worthy for my brother when he gets home and blah, blah, blah. And apparently she was going over to my grandmother's house, once a week and, trying to, get her way in the family and blah, blah, blah. My nan loved it because she's very lonely. My pop, super sick. And nan was like, yay, someone wants to visit me and hang out with me, when actually she was just trying to make her way in. And as soon as she found out that my brother had married someone else, just cut it off with my nan. And my nan was heartbroken. She's like, why is my friend not visit anymore? And I was like, oh my gosh, nan, it's because it was a scam.
It was the pyramid scheme.
Sorry, nan. Yeah.
So I guess, you look at the culture, the pressures that come from it, and I guess, were there key moments along your journey where you started to say, wait a second?
Oh, there was so many. There really was quite a few. I think a big one, actually, surprisingly, because when I was married to Hyram's brother, we still went to church. We went to church all the time. We did the Mormon thing. We went to we did our duties, and I raised my kids. I didn't even think about it. You just raise your kids the way that you're told to do. But I don't know, at the end of that marriage, I did start to get to the point where I don't know necessarily. I actually don't think that I was questioning the church more than just questioning the marriage, really, I guess. But I was trying to get out. And that kind of made me question things, because I was like, how do I get out of a Mormon marriage without, just totally ruining my life with...
I guess for context as well. So my brother has also since left the church. So I guess you can sort of see some of the directions that this goes in, and the process of it as well, because that's interesting as well, sort of learning about the process. We'll get to that soon, but as you were.
Yeah, so I think that I was trying to get out, and like I said, just that pressure of, how do I get out? How do I do this? Because I was vocal about, I want out, but we were churchgoers, so we just kept going to church, and we just kept playing the game. And then I don't know how many details I should get into with that, but yeah, it got to the point where actually that I probably have to talk about that, because that was major in my opinions of not just the church and church leaders, was how that whole thing went down.
Well, I guess you could almost say that your marriage, in a way, because it was so based in the church, was tied. Your whole belief system and the way you did things was tied with that. What was the process like? Once you'd made that decision with my brother to get a divorce, what was that process like in the church?
Oh man, it was Well, it was terrible because I felt like, I was the one that was put the shame onto, even though, like I said, there's always layers of truth. But I just kept thinking, how do I get out? And like I said, I would say that vocally to your brother. And it got to the point where he joined a dating website, and he was showing me, and he was like, this is what you've made me do. And so it was all the man. The man, is the shit in the church, like you can't.
That's the thing that gets me, the whole look at what you made me do. Like, bitch, I didn't make you do anything. Like, you have free agency for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm just going to cut this off as a priesthood, Lena.
You wish. Where's the boss of this household? I will get him involved.
Oh my goodness. But that was honestly that same thing kind of happened to me. Like, I got to the point where, he joined this thing. And so then I was like, fine, I'll start going on dates or whatever. And I was like, I was still, honestly, like even in the church standards, I was still behaving or whatever. But it got to the point where it was just a bit of a mess. And I still, with that brainwashed helmet that I was wearing, thought, okay, I'm going to go talk to the bishop about this, who was an old fart.
Oh no, I can see where this goes.
Half deaf. And I think that we had called him, I don't know, it was probably like 10 o'clock. It was like after hours, you know what I mean? And we called the bishop. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to get out. Nobody's listening to me. I'll go talk to the bishop because, he's a chosen guy. And went there and I told him, I said, look, this is what's going on. And then he was sitting there going, yep. And then he said, okay, come in and we'll have a meeting with you and your brother. And then when I went in for that, it was seriously like so bizarre. And I just remember thinking, what the hell is going on here? Because he was sitting there just talking to your brother. He wasn't talking to me. And he was sitting there saying things like, take away her phone, take away her computer, do this. And I'm sitting there going, my family's all in America. I can't communicate with my family without my phone and my computer. And I said that to the bishop. And then he looked right back at your brother and he goes, take it away from her. And I was like, fuck you.
I am so mad for you right now. Oh my God.
Oh man, I was livid. And I even said to him, I was like, because he said, he was saying things that, from what, honestly, I'm not just saying this to be joking. I honestly don't think that he put his hearing aids in. I don't think he put his hearing aids in the night before when we came late, because he was saying stuff and I'm like, I didn't say that. And I was like, no, I didn't say that I had done that. And I'm just like sitting there trying to be like, no, I'm not that kind of a person. And he was sitting there just, I was not up to level. I was not a human. I was not, like I was the woman and I was the one to be controlled. Like, I still cannot believe that, the way that he just turned and he was like, take it away. And when he said that, I was like, you know what? And I stood up and I just said, fuck this. And I walked out and I just started, you probably remember the chapel, but yeah. So I just started to walk home and I was like, I just felt so trapped. Like I couldn't do anything.
And that's wild because you lived like 45-minute drive away.
Yep. Yeah. Like I came home with blisters that big. That would be like a 50-cent piece to everybody.
Did he make you walk home?
No. Actually, I didn't walk all the way. Actually, no. Yeah. What happened was I was like walking and he came and pulled up and I was like, nope. And I ended up like, he had the kids in the back and he was trying to get them to kind of pressure me to come back into the car, which I think is a Mormon mentality of getting other people in, get those other crabs to pull you back into the water.
And especially like using your kids as well. Like as a mother myself, I can imagine or like how, I don't know, I guess the word I want to use, like how triggering that would be and how difficult of a situation that would have been emotionally as well.
Oh man, I felt so trapped. And I was telling him to leave and he wasn't. I think I ended up throwing rocks at the car. And that's when he was like, okay, so he left. And then another church member came to pick me up. But it was that same, you should just do, like it was that whole mentality of you don't have a choice. this is what you have to do this. Otherwise you will be the shunned one. And like, it was terrible. And the woman that picked me up, her husband, if I'm remembering right, he was a police officer, and he ended up getting involved later because of how the whole thing ended up going. But even that, I just felt trapped with that, because it was like, well, he's my friend. He's not going to believe you. And just the whole, it was terrible.
I guess you especially feel like a bit of a fish out of water, because even at that time, the relationship with us as a family wasn't the same as it is now.
Yeah.
And, the rest of your family's over in the States, and you're in this little ho-dunk town over the other side of the world, and they're telling, this guy to take your phone off you and cut all contact. That's scary.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
And, like, the wild thing is, like, so I've been doing a lot of studies about cults and how they control and manipulate. Like, that is literally an abuse and manipulation tactic to cut off your contact from the outside world, so that you are forced back into those old ways of thinking, because you literally don't have any other input.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, makes me feel sick.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to take that turn, let's be honest.
Ba-ba-ba-bum.
Wow, that's crazy. That's absolutely insane that to this day, they still do that.
Yeah.
The fact that they just ignore you, and you don't even exist. It's like, what is this?
Sorry, we just don't have a penis.
Yeah.
What can I say? Born different.
You're not worthy. So I guess, that would have been a pretty decent shelf item. So I guess, was that sort of the beginning of the end?
Yeah, actually, maybe that's a good way to put it, because there were so many things that broke the shelf, but that was a very huge beginning, because I well and truly felt like I was trying to do things the right way as far as like what I thought my options were. And then just to be bombarded like that, and just being forced into this role of, the scarlet letter type of thing, where it's just like, yeah, well, you're the one that did this. And where it just feels like I was trying. I'm still a good girl.
Because I remember when we were out in the branch that Dad was on the branch presidency, and he's like, all right, we've got to stay late. You wait out here, because I went to church with him quite often. And I'm like, oh, what are we doing? And he's like, oh, we've just got a disciplinary meeting, and your brother's coming in and he's going to speak to us. And at that time, I didn't actually know what that meant. It wasn't until they tried to put me through a disciplinary meeting that I actually understood what it meant. And I guess were there ramifications for you when it came to the divorce, or was it more so you just sort of said, fuck this shit?
It was difficult, because we actually ended up moving back to America, because your brother was telling everybody that I was crazy, and that once I was back home that I would be normal, and he wanted me to be he thought that my family could kind of keep me under control, which didn't end up happening. But I still was trying to do all the whole going to church and all that. And then my eldest, that was at the time when my eldest was due to be baptized. And I remember I had already, the waters were already dirtied with my thoughts of the Mormon leaders because of that. But then once we went back to America, and I thought, oh, it'll be different, because it is different. The church is different in different areas of the world. And I thought, oh, they'll be better there. And then we got there, and I told them, I won't get right into it, but there was abuse at the end, like when I was trying to leave, and there was physical abuse. And so when we got to America, I was telling the church leaders, this happened, this happened, this happened. And I said, my eldest was going to get baptized, and your brother still ended up baptizing him. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I just told you he dragged me across the house by my hair. How can a worthy temple member baptize somebody that's just done this? And that was like the least of the stuff. And I'm just like, I just remember being like, you know what? I was just like, kind of like, just mind fucked. I couldn't believe that this was happening when I flat out told them this is the abuse. And they're like, okay. and it had just happened.
That's insane. Was it just the oldest son that was baptized, or was your daughter baptized as well?
She did end up getting baptized later, but that was because of the other crabs pulling her back into the pot. Like the church sent members around.
Sent the Goonies around.
Yeah. Get her.
Wowza. What an experience. I mean, and that's only just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Like the fact that, you were completely immersed throughout your whole childhood up until this point, it's just, it changes everything and changes your perception of the world. I think we might split this episode in two. We'll probably leave it here for the moment. We'll take a short break and come back next week. I mean, for us, it's a short break. For you guys, it's a whole week.
Short break. Short rest.
So thank you again for joining us this week. We do appreciate you following us, and especially that person that's binged every episode. Thank you. If you do want to reach out to us, we would love to hear from you. I believe we've nominated Sister Donna as the official spokesperson.
Yes, she is the email lady and I am the social media lady.
And I'm the editor-in-chief, so that'll do. So please, if you want to reach out, touch base at onceuponamormon@gmail.com.
Yes, or Once Upon a Mormon on Facebook and Instagram, and I believe it does not matter if you have spaces or not, because...
I think if you just search it, it'll come up.
Yeah, I don't think we're that famous that people are trying to...
We didn't pay for the blue tick of approval on Twitter, that's for sure.
No. Do you have $8?
No, I can't afford that. We don't get tithing.
Ah, that sucks.
So, anyway, thanks for coming, and we look forward to meeting for part 2 of this episode next week.
Bye.
Toodaloo.
Bye, guys.